Good morning and welcome to UUSF Forum. I see a couple of new faces, so I'll just mention logistics, okay, that the bathroom's just around the corner if you need to use that. And if you are not getting our emails that announce these forums, then there's a sign-up sheet by the door. Just jot your name down and put your email address legibly, and we will add you to the list. I am Jeff Peckrell from the Human Rights Working Group, and I want to welcome you to International Women's Day. Today is International Women's Day, and we have a very special program for you today. We have Carol Ruth Silver. I'll let um, Lori Lai give her a proper introduction in a few minutes here, but she is our speaker for International Women's Day. I want to tell you about a few other forums that we have coming up this month. And I'll start with the last one on March 29th. We have another topic that's very relevant to Women's Month, okay? So Meg Green will be giving a talk about Anne Fagan Ginger, who is a very, I would say, famous and important human rights activist attorney. So that's on March 29th. Next Sunday, Anne Revere from our church here is going to give us a talk about the trip she took to West Africa, where she learned about aspects of the slave trade, but also the beautiful and vibrant culture in countries like Ghana and Benin and Senegal. So that should be really interesting. I've seen some of her pictures, and I think it's going to be a fascinating talk next Sunday. 2 weeks from today, we will have Richard Becker, who is from the Answer Coalition, who will be helping us to understand the terrible things that are happening in the Middle East, talking about Iran and Israel and so forth. So come back for that in 2 weeks. So those are all I have in terms of announcement. Don't forget that there will be another No Kings March on the 28th of March, and there is a committee working part of the Human Rights Working Group that is preparing signs for that. If you'd like to get involved in that, talk to Dolores. Dolores or Bruce. So they're involved in organizing the creating of those signs. And now we'll have our Ohlone land recognition, and then Lori Lai will introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. We, the members of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco, gratefully acknowledge that we are located on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who inhabited what is now the San Francisco Peninsula. We recognize that we benefit from working and living here, and we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples. The Greater Bay Area is also the ancestral territory of the Miwok, Yokuts, Patwin, and other indigenous tribes. As the original stewards of this land, the indigenous peoples understood the interconnectedness of all things, animals and life and nature, and maintained harmony with all of nature for millennia. We honor them now for their enduring commitment to our Mother Earth. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure as a fellow University of Chicago alumni to introduce Carol Ruth Silver to you. Carol Ruth Silver was one of the first two white women jailed as a freedom rider, an experience that sparked her career in law and politics, fighting for others' rights. After graduating from the University of Chicago in 1960, where she first became involved in civil rights, Silver worked as a UN clerk. Before law school, she traveled to the South as a freedom rider, was arrested in Mississippi, spent 40 days in jail, and she later published her diary. She graduated from law school in 1964, interned for the African-American attorney Floyd McKessick, and served on San Francisco's Board of Supervisors, 1977, 1989, working with Harvey Milk. She founded San Francisco's first Mandarin immersion school in 1982 and traveled to Afghanistan after 2002 to promote education for women and girls. After 50 years of practicing law, she retired in 2005, but continued social justice work as Director of Prisoner Legal Services, 2008 to 2009, inspiring her fight for drug reform. As of 2024, she focuses on pro bono education projects and political campaigns. Please welcome to the forum, Carol Ruth Silver.
Hello. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate it. I'm not sure that I wrote it myself, but it was some time ago since it was published, and I am grateful for Lori having not made additional comments on it. Actually, I just need to get my water bottle. Hold on one sec. Yes. So my history with this subject matter is very long. My first political experience, though I don't remember it, I am told by my mother, was that she pushed my baby carriage in her efforts to demonstrate for the legalization of birth control education, the legalization of birth control in the state of Massachusetts back 80 years ago, 80 some odd years ago. I'm 87, so it's got to be in more than that. And that was followed by has been followed by a long lifetime of being involved in this issue. The next time that I am aware that I was affected by the whole question of birth control, of the constitutional right of women to control their own bodies and so forth, I was subjected by the medical people at the University of Chicago who were experimenting with various different kinds of birth control. And so they recruited students like me who were young and female and fertile, or at least believed to be fertile, and offered us the opportunity to have birth control pills tried out on us. And I did that. And later, much later in life, discovered that I had been taking a much higher dose of birth control pills than was recommended at the time, by the time that birth control pills were generally made available, and that this may have impacted my reproductive health, because when I was in my late 20s, I joined a large number of female persons in America who felt that they wanted to have children, that they had avoided having babies. They had not gotten pregnant for many years during their sexually active lives, but that now they were ready. And we were memorialized in a book called Up Against the Clock. And Up Against the Clock was, it was very important to me. I wanted very much to have a child, to not be denied the opportunity to be a mother, etc. And when I tried to do that, it didn't work. And the gynecologist said, "Well, you've got all the plumbing in there, but it just isn't doing it." So I began my life-changing experience of then seeking to adopt, which was a difficult thing, and then finally adopting a little boy from Taiwan, who was the light of my life, and still is, though he's now in his 50s. And it's a little bit more difficult. But he has he gave me two beautiful grandsons who are now in college. And I am happy about that. And then the happy end of that story is that 3 years later, my tubes and plumbing began to work. And I became pregnant with my second son, whose name is Jefferson and who is also very wonderful. Um, and he has three little kids who are just adorable. Okay, so all of that led up to Mifepristone. Now, how many of you have ever heard that word before, Mifepristone? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, mostly. Okay. So Mifepristone is the scientific name for something that began its life under the name RU46, RU486. RU stands for Roussel Uclaf, which was the name of the company, the French company, which did the research or provided the research opportunity for Dr. Etienne Emile Balliot, who developed RU46 as number 486, number 486th compound that he tried out. He tried putting this kind of stuff with that kind of stuff, and he finally found one that worked. And so they named it RU486. So since that is much easier to say than Mifepristone, I'm going to refer to the thing we're talking about as RU486, and please forgive me for that, because I have to admit, being a lawyer and not a doctor, I have struggled to get the correct pronunciation of the scientific name of RU486. The history of RU486 begins really in 1980. So in 1980, when I was a member of the Board of Supervisors here in San Francisco, there was a great announcement in the medical community that there had been successful trials, a successful creation of a drug which, when administered to a pregnant lady, was within 10 weeks, that this caused a medically and this caused an abortion, it caused the removal of the fertilized egg from the uterus of this woman, and that was what we call an abortion. And up to that time, the only abortions that were known or that were were happening were surgical abortions, in which sometimes a doctor and sometimes just a friend and sometimes couldn't be done by yourself, but women over the years had found ways in which to avoid pregnancies when they didn't want them. And the symbol of the pro-abortion, anti uh, I like to say anti-life affirming, anti-feminist, anti-women who object to abortions happening is a metal hanger. And a metal hanger can be twisted, and was, into a shape which was able to scrape off from the internal organs of a woman the fertilized egg, which causes a fetus to grow. Now, nobody likes that. Nobody is in favor of that. When people say, I'm pro-abortion, they don't really mean that they like the fact that women who don't want to carry to term an accidental pregnancy have, over the years, made themselves into this person who has to have this surgical procedure. So Mifepristone, RU486, was a great revolution for women because it was easy, it was non-surgical, and it allowed an opportunity to have a comfortable, usually in a doctor's office or uh, in general, a safe, because abortions were not safe. Surgical abortions are not safe, and particularly not the kind of abortions that were done with wire hangers and other informal surgical instruments. Life was very hard back in the day, and life was very short back in the day. And many, many women died from the botched abortions that they felt that they were, that it was necessary for them to undergo. So in 1980, Monsieur Balliot decided that he had found the right formula. RU486 was then presented to the medical people in France. Clinical trials were used to make sure that it had no great side effects, that it was safe to use, and they were all positive. And the French, bless their little pointed heads, decided that this is a medication we will make available to our citizens in France. It proved safe and effective, particularly when combined with another medication, which also has a scientific name, which I have difficulty pronouncing, Misoprostol. And Misoprostol is a medication that is still used, always used in pregnancies. When a baby is being born, this medication is the one that encourages the contraction of the uterus, so that the uterus, having been uh, lifted from having a fertilized egg attached to it, when this other drug doesn't have an easy name, but Mifepristone is administered, that will cause the contraction of the uterus and the expulsion of the remains of what was a fetus. So those two things together had a 99% have and had and were announced as having by 1988, it was well known in the medical profession that this was the thing that many gynecologists and many women's organizations had been searching for years, namely a simple medical abortion that was not surgical, that was easy and even cheap, relatively cheap. So what happened in France was that women began using this, and by the year 2000, so this is now 20 years after this medication has been available in France, the FDA of the United States approved RU486. It was marketed as Mifepristone for medical abortions up to 10 weeks of gestation. Now, however, we know that our wise judges of the Supreme Court of the United States have decided that abortion in general is not a human right. It's not a woman's right. It's not available except it is prohibited as a surgical procedure, as it was is a surgical procedure. However, what is left is that mifepristone as a pill is there and can be used, we hope. However, even though decades of tests have shown that mifepristone, RU486, is safe and has no significant side effects on anybody, it is under attack now in the United States. And one of the most interesting things about mifepristone is that if you think about the recent history of the United States, what's the most dramatic thing that has happened to us in the last few years, and that is the COVID epidemic. We all were suddenly not allowed to go out. We had to do things in a totally different way. And at that time, rather than go to a doctor's office to get RU486, a woman seeking an abortion through this medical, in this medical way, was going to stay at home and have the medication mailed to her by a doctor who would write a prescription, and then her own doctor, or if she went to a specialist who was a gynecologist or a specialist in this kind of thing, they would do what became telehealth. I'm sure everybody has had the experience of having even their own doctor whom they have been having a look at them with a little microscope and a little heart thing, look at them for years, for years and years and years. You went to the doctor. It meant physically you went to some place where your doctor was. But now, during COVID, nobody wanted to go to their doctor, and the doctors didn't want them to come to him or her. And so telehealth, using Zoom, using just all kinds of things, became a very important part of the medical practice. And now in those states which have created anti-abortion restrictions since the decision of the Supreme Court of the United States saying that abortion is not a right of humans, then the telehealth people, the doctors who can get onto a Zoom call and talk to you and listen to your symptoms and listen to your requests, can write a prescription and put it into the US postal mail and send it to you. And then with that prescription, you can call your telepharmacy and get them to mail you the RU486 pills plus the Misoprostol a pill that goes with it. And this has been a very successful thing that has, in the comments of a number of commentators, has increased since the Supreme Court's abortion decision, has increased the quantity, and I would hasten to say the quality. The important thing about Mifepristone is that it has almost no side effects. It is not surgical. It is a very, very good thing that happened to us if we are in trying to reduce the population, if we're trying to help women who have become accidentally pregnant, all kinds of things. There's all kinds of good stuff tied up in RU486, but but what that has meant is that there has been a significant increase in the number of abortions that have been happening in the United States and other Western countries since the decision of the Supreme Court to ban abortion or to withdraw the ability of American women to get abortions. So the curve has been going up like this, and all of the anti-women people who are saying, well, we had a great victory. Yes, the Supremes took our arguments and they said, no, the American women do not have a right to an abortion if they want one. Instead, that caused a switch to these telehealth medical situations, and the actual number of abortions has gone up and up and up and up, and looks to continue to go on that path. There's no indication as to why it should not be going up. So the next thing that happened in the United States is that the anti-abortion people, the evangelical churches, the Catholic Church, when they're not fighting off the lawsuits that they are being subjected to for ancient sex abuse cases, they have come forward and said, we have to stop these telehealth people. And what they are doing is, and I have a couple of copies if somebody is really interested, but what they're doing in the state of California is they're suing. They have made a request for they've made a request to the state of California to send them to arrest and send to Texas, the governor of Texas and the Texas Attorney General are trying to get the state of California to arrest and send to Texas for prosecution a California doctor, Southern California doctor, who prescribed as a telehealth medical professional for a Texas lady the pills that would allow her to have an abortion with RU-486 plus Misoprostol. And that is, this, I think, was February 27, just a couple of weeks ago. The governor of California responded to the governor of Texas. And what do you think he said? Not much. Up yours. And no, that's not a quote, but that's a characterization. And he said, no, we're not going to extradite a doctor from California. And now this case is going to go up to the Supreme Court of the United States. And the question at that court is going to be whether or not the state of Texas can prosecute a California doctor for prescribing for a resident of Texas the RU-486 pill. Now, along these things that have happened, if anybody wants to read about that, they can. Along these things has come something else. And a lot of women thought that RU-486 was going to be the morning after pill, because the morning after pill is when a particularly young woman, because that's most of who get into this situation, makes a mistake and has unprotected sex. Now, having been a young woman, having done that, having never gotten pregnant, I am very, very sympathetic, however, to the young girls that I know who get into that situation. And for them, we have something called the morning after pill, which is not, I have to go over there. So for all of you who have young ladies who might possibly need it, I look out at this sea of gray hairs and I bet you've never seen one, but this is a marketed, purchased yesterday at a CVS thing called Plan B, One Step. There's also another brand called Julie, and they are literally the morning after pill. If your young lady gets into that situation, she has to hustle to get within 3 days, but better the next morning, take this purchase, go and purchase without a prescription, something called Plan B One Step, or Plan B, or the morning after pill. The doctors, the pharmacists all know it. And they take this and one pill, nothing else. And that discharge, that gives a shot of prostaglandin, which is the hormone in your body, in everybody's body all the time, or I guess every woman's body all the time, that will discharge from or prevent the fertilized egg from attaching to the uterus, so that the possibility of pregnancy will go away. And I will tell you that I have a fair number of lady friends or girl friends, friends who are girls, and I usually keep at least one fresh, not expired box of these in my house all the time. They're not cheap. This is $49, but it's something that every grandmother who has female grandchildren should have around just in case. And that's what it is. It's a just in case kind of thing. Nobody likes abortions. Nobody says, well, I'm in favor of abortions. Who's in favor of anything like that? None of us. But we are also not in favor of unwanted pregnancies. And the primary objective of the organization, which I started along with Paula Fiscal, who was and is my good friend and was then my administrative assistant at City Hall. We started this thing called Every Child a Wanted Child, Reproductive Health Equity. RU 486 exclamation point. And we got together with a number of women's organizations. We had some contact with Reverend Jesse Jackson and his organization, which was called PUSH, and all of the other civil rights organizations that were interested in women's rights. And the primary right for a young woman is not to be thrust into an unwanted parenthood. If you are a 13-year-old girl in India, you are very likely to be pushed into an unwanted marriage, let alone if you are a teenager in America being solicited by teenage boys, or in many instances, an even more dangerous and obnoxious set of adult males to have sex. It's a big, big problem for teenagers, and it's a big problem that we now have the solution to. If it happens, you can avoid the possibility of a pregnancy. And it's really important that we do that. I can't remember or pronounce the name of the medication that's in here, but it has been approved by the FDA. It's been touted in lots and lots of medical journals. Even Kaiser Permanente carries it in their pharmacy. But it is really, really, Plan B is really an important step. Now, if RU 486, Mifepristone, gets wiped out by the Supreme Court, if they decide that there is no right to have this very simple, very very important medication made available to women, there will develop a black market. There will develop those same kind of backdoor surgical abortions that were rampant in urban areas before RU 486 came on the scene. And I think it's 54% of abortions that now occur in the United States, which are done with the RU 486 pill, will be at risk. So I urge you to talk to your congressman, talk to your senator, send them a postcard, send them a note, and say, please help us In California, I think you're in good shape. We are in good shape because we have public officials like Gavin Newsom who are on our side, but we are but we are at risk because anytime that a young woman goes to Texas, for example, or any of the other states which have prohibited the uh, the the procedure of abortion, she and her family are at risk of having an unwanted pregnancy. And an unwanted pregnancy creates a child that is not a wanted child. And all these anti-abortion organizations, I always want to go up to some of them and say, well, would you adopt a child that was born because the mother uh, could not support, did not want to support? Never, never, never. They are not willing to step up to the plate. All they want to see is more babies born. And that also goes with my other great interest, which is ZPG, zero population growth, which you may or may not believe in, but we as a society have overutilized our resources, and we are now in trouble, bad trouble. We need to make changes in our world, and this is one of them, to support and preserve RU486, keep it available for women that want to use it, women and girls that want to use it, need to use it. And I hope that you will join me in this effort. Thank you very much.
People have questions for Carol Ruth Silver, please write them on the cards and we'll ask them right now.
I'll just take the gentleman with the red jacket in the back. Do you want to ask a question? You ask it and I'll repeat it.
Thank you. We like to do the questions this way on the card so that folks who are on Zoom can hear the questions that are being asked. Okay. So here's the question. As you see it, what's the role of men in all of this? Do men have a specific perspective?
Yes. Responsible men who do not want to have an unwanted child come into the world should join all of the responsible girls and women who say, we are ready to wait. We want to wait until we can preserve the opportunity for this child that I want to bear but cannot at this point do so. I need your help, Mr. Male. I need your help, Mr. Supporter, to make a world where we can have a child that is going to be wanted and supported and helped and mentored. And that's what you can do.
In what states is the morning after pill and Mifepristone available? And is it being shipped from California to, I know some states have banned it, right? Could you just talk about that?
The states that have passed the most draconian, I have it somewhere in my notes, but I can't get it quickly. The states that have passed the draconian anti-abortion laws are the ones where it's difficult for somebody to get the Mifepristone or RU486. And there are, I believe, 16 or 17 states which have taken that action. And there are others where it is on the legislative agenda Um, Certainly California, New York, Oregon, Washington State, and those that are, what shall I say, more liberal jurisdictions have not allowed the Supreme Court's decision to stop them from allowing their doctors to do telemedicine, send prescriptions, send uh, things that allow the availability of RU-486 in their states.
We have two questions about the deliveries of these drugs. Is the U.S. Post Office now prohibited from delivering RU-486? And also, if sending pills now across state lines to someone in at home is that being
Prohibited?
prohibited? Is it prosecutable?
Well, the Texas governor, the Texas Attorney General, whose name is Ken Paxton, is also a candidate for governor in the next round of elections coming up in Texas, and he says they should be. That is, nobody has yet suggested that the President of the United States could go and tell the Post Office of the United States, which is now a separate entity, is no longer part of the government per se, although it's supported by the government, that you can't process these pills or you can't send them. I hope that that suggestion is not heard by any of the bad guys who might be listening. And but I've not heard any suggestion yet that that is a possibility. However, Paxton is working day and night to find a way to stop telemedicine.
What is the state of laws, such as in Texas, that criminalize travel to another state where abortion is legal? So I guess now we're talking not about chemical abortion, but surgical.
I don't know the answer to that. There have been a lot of newspaper stories about this latest effort, which involves a lawsuit against where is his name? I can't find his name, but there is a foundation called Aid Access, which is devoted to trying to help women who need abortions. And the founder of that is Rebecca Gompertz, which I have known, whom I have known the name of for a long time. Coetau, Taux, and probably another Frenchman, who runs a telemedicine practice out of Sonoma County. He was previously sued by a Texas man for allegedly mailing the abortion pills to his girlfriend, who used it to end 2 pregnancies before he impregnated her a 3rd time. And he is also being pursued for extradition by the state of Louisiana, officials who want to prosecute him on similar claims to the Texas Attorney General.
Is it true that this plaintiff has actually been accused of battering the woman whose pregnancy he wants to?
Yes, that's correct. And it is so reported in the San Francisco Chronicle in this article that I have a few copies of if anybody wants to read them.
Why is a prescription required for RU-486 but not for the morning after pill?
The answer is because of the timing of what happens when in order for a pregnancy to be maintained in a woman's body, there has to be a hormone called progesterone, which I think most people have heard of. And that is that is very common, and it's not unusual. The morning after pill causes the ovulation by the woman's body in the same way that stops the ovulation, the same way that birth control pills. It's basically a heavy duty shot of uh, uh, birth control medicine. That's my best understanding of what it is. And because there has not yet been a combination of the sperm and the egg inside the woman's body, it is not considered that that it's an abortion, but rather a contraception. And if it were an abortion, then it would be prohibited. If it's just contraception, at least so far, although, as I said at the beginning, my history in this set of controversies goes all the way back to being a 2-year-old in a pram, being pushed around by my mother, who was advocating for the legalization of birth control education, legalization of contraception in Massachusetts, way back, more than 50 years ago.
Aren't people like Ken Paxton actually in favor of criminalizing contraception? I believe I'm hearing that too.
Probably.
Please remind this audience of the number of eggs a woman carries that could end in pregnancy.
Personally, personally, as I mentioned, I didn't have enough, or it wasn't working when I was ready to have a baby. But my body, the wisdom of my body was that there was a time, and the time was, and it did, and that's how I got my second son, and I'm very happy to report that there was just enough. If it was only one, I don't know, but I believe that the number is over a woman's lifetime, something under 50. It's not a big number. The guys have all these little spermy things, and there are millions of those in every squirt, but that's not my understanding of how the woman's side of it works.
From where or what does the quote unquote right to an abortion spring? What is the legal basis for that?
In the same place that we derive the God-given right of every person to have the freedom of speech, the freedom of their opportunity to live in this world, the same place that all rights uh, to our humanity, to our living, the right to pursue the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of all of those kind of rights. Whence cometh the Constitution's invocation of those rights? It's right there in the Declaration of Independence.
Control over your own body, right?
Right.
What is the argument before the Supreme Court? Extradition, the use of RU 486 nationally, the right of aforementioned to the life of a child. What are the cases that are before the Supreme Court? If you could talk about that.
I can only speak about the one that was in the newspaper clipping that I made available. This is not yet in the Supreme Court of the United States. It is right now, it's in a Texas municipal court or superior court, where the as I understand it, the Attorney General of Texas has filed a criminal complaint and said that a Texas crime was committed, and we, as the supreme judicial body in Texas, have sent a request to the supreme judicial body in California to say, you are harboring a criminal in California who has committed a crime in Texas. And the first issue that will be addressed by some one of these courts will be probably the Texas court will issue an opinion that says a crime committed essentially by mailing this abortion pill is prosecutable in Texas. So if this Dr. Corito travels to Texas, he should not. That's basically. If he travels to Texas, he can be arrested under Texas law and prosecuted there for having committed a crime in Texas. But that is what's going to go up on appeal. So the Texas court will rule, yep, a Texas crime was committed in Texas. See, that's the key. And therefore, we're going to prosecute this person if we can get our hands on him, if we can arrest him, if we can get him extradited from, and it's not just extradited from California, but any place that Dr. Corito may hereafter travel. If he travels to I forget what the other states are, though, to Missouri, for example, and is arrested there by a Missouri court or policeman and is held and then extradited to Texas. That's the fear, not just another state in the United States, but if he goes to some country, Uganda, for example, which prohibits abortion in Africa or in its jurisdiction, he will be at risk. So it's not just, the governor said he's not going to extradite him. Yes, that's true, but the doctor is still at risk over a period of time, and this needs to be resolved, and it will be resolved. I'm not sure it'll be resolved in favor of the women of America, given our Supreme Court, but it needs to be resolved.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? Yes, Milo, do you have a?
Yeah. We can, the folks on Zoom can hear it unless you write it in.
Why don't you just say it and I'll repeat it?
Your way to outlaw contraception, and it's being under the word natalism.
Okay. So the question is, natalism is a new word that is entering our vocabulary, and that is supposedly the opposition to contraception as well as abortion. And I would say in response to that I stand with ZPG. I stand with zero population growth, which is what we should be seeking, not more people than our Earth, our poor little planet can support at this time. The seas are rising. The air is getting more polluted. We need to stop having more babies. We do not need to take steps to encourage that.
I think natalism also embraces patriarchy and quote unquote traditional wives, I should say, and having lots and lots of children. So it's completely contrary to ZPG, as she was talking about.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we are done with questions. I want to thank you, Ruth, or Carol Ruth Silver. And those of you who are attending the service, there's going to be some reflections relating to International Women's Day in there, so please stay for that. And let me just repeat a couple more announcements. So on the last Sunday of this month, Meg Whitaker Green, who's here today, will be giving another talk that relates to Women's Month. She'll be talking about the famous human rights attorney Anne Fagan Ginger. So please come back for that on the 29th. And next Sunday, Anne Revere will be here and speaking to us about a trip she took to Africa, West Africa, where she learned about some of the sad aspects of the slave trade there hundreds of years ago, but also the beautiful and very vibrant culture of countries like Ghana and Senegal and Benin that she traveled to. So that's going to be really interesting. And then 2 weeks from today, we will have Richard Becker from the Answer Coalition, who will be helping us to understand the tragic events taking place right now in the Middle East. So those are coming events. And one more I'll mention is the planning for the No King's Day 3. So if you want to get involved in making signs for that, talk to Dolores or Bruce. Thank you.